All right, moving on to 30 Days of Night, Dark Days. So I was surprised to find out that this actually follows Stella from the first movie. Now, she has been recast here. It is not by Melissa George. But I have to wonder if this was Melissa George, if people would like this movie a little more than they do, because mostly in the comment section of the first movie, when I did the first review yesterday, I think I posted it today actually, mostly what I saw down there were negatives towards this movie. And I understand why, because it's a downgrade in production quality. But as a low budget, straight to DVD sequel, which I'm totally like willing to look at it as that and judge it accordingly. Like, I'm not going to put it against some higher budgeted, Hollywood release, because I just don't think that's fair. I'm going to judge it for exactly what it is. And as I've seen plenty of direct to DVD sequels that are lower budget and whatnot. The Hellraiser franchise went and did a ton of them. Some franchises do that. And for that, I actually liked it. I had a good time with it. Are there things that I don't like? Sure, of course. But I thought it was fine. Like, I'm not a big fan of the first one, though. I really didn't love it. I liked it the most I've ever liked it on this viewing. And I know everyone was blowing it in the comments, which I've expected because that's what most people feel about this first one here. But because maybe I don't love the first one, so I'm not attached to anything in it. The recasting, of course, I'm not a fan of. I really wish that they would have given this thing a little bit more of a budget, cast Melissa George. Obviously, we're going to be talking about spoilers, so you could even have a cameo from Josh Hartnett. That would have been cool, and I do think people would have liked him more. Even as it sits right now, just not recasting, I think people would like it more. I think they'd be down on it, but I don't think they'd be as down on it. I could be wrong, but that's how I felt about it. Anyway. And what is this? If George people like more, what the fuck? I wrote a note up here at the top of my shit. I'm gonna have to figure out what the hell I'm talking about, because I already talked about it. If it was Melissa George in the I write these really vague notes, and wow, that's ridiculous. So this movie starts off with really bad trailers, which is always a bad sign. Have you guys ever noticed that? When trailers are shit before a movie, you start going, uh-oh. Seems like really shitty trailers are attached to really shitty movies. Some of the trailers were bad, some of them were good, and I was like, oh no, I don't know, because it started off with a real bad one. And I had seen this before, but I didn't remember it at all. But when I did see it, I remember thinking it was fine. I was like, actually, at that time, I actually liked it better than the original because I just didn't like the original, but now I don't feel that way. People would fucking call me nuts, probably unsubscribe from the channel for that thought, but, I'm not going to fucking lie about it. All right, so now this is Stella, and this is her story this time, and she's out there trying to tell everybody that vampires exist. She's in Los Angeles. They've rebuilt the town that was burned down in the first one, and she is out there trying to let the world know vampires exist. Of course, no one believes her. They all think it's ridiculous. She holds a discussion, a TED Talks of sorts, and she's trying to tell people, and she baits these guys in. So she gets kind of like a tip from this guy who ends up being like a vampire, but not like a fully turned vampire. But she gets this tip that they're in LA, so she goes there and she rigs up some lights, some UV lights, and actually burns them in the crowd to prove that they exist to this crowd. I thought that was badass. I thought that was great, man. Like, lure them in, they're following you around, hit them with the lights, do it in front of everybody. And of course the cops come in, there's vampire like lackeys, they call them bug eaters, I think, if I remember correctly. And they're, they have these in most of these movies. Blade has them. They have their own names and their own people. But they're always people who want to become vampires. And so she of course is taken in by this like FBI dude, and he's like, you need to shut your fucking mouth, you can't say no more, we'll kill you. Obviously this isn't going to work, because then she goes and she runs into this group of vampire hunters, which, you see this in any one of these movies, but this is typical for a sequel. They call this sequel-itis, I guess. So yeah, I mean, I like where this story heads, though. I like that she's, out there trying to let people know, and no one believes her. She runs into some, like, this expands the lore in a lot of different ways. This isn't just some rinse, lather, repeat kind of film. Like, let's just put it back, in the same town. We'll do the same thing over again. That's not what this film is at all. And I feel like that's what people want. I really believe that most people don't want original stories when it comes to sequels. They want it to, that's why I think people are like, don't do sequels, because they know their own expectations. And even when it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, a lot of times, it's too much like the first. It's not enough like the first. It's like, oh fuck, come on. I get that there's a balance to it, but this is unique. This is different than you would have expected it to be, and I like it for that. I commend it for that. It's just a very fine direct-to-DVD sequel. Would people have been happier with a bigger budgeted one? This and that. Absolutely, of course. Like, I do wish this was better produced, better all around. But for what it is, and judging it exactly for what it is, I like it. But anyway, yeah, like when the FBI guy's coming at her, and then they're like, well, we don't want to kill her because that'll just kind of make her a martyr. We'll give a little bit more credence to what she's talking about, which of course is what all the UFO guys and such kind of say. It's like, well, they don't want to kill us, because if they do, then people will be like, why did they die? Uh-oh, what they're saying must be true. So this happens in tons and tons and tons of movies. Nothing surprising there. Let's see. Heads with bullets. So there's actually some pretty good kills, decent stuff in here. This vampire kind of puts his head in through the door, and they take their guns, like all the vampire hunters, and they fire like 15, 20 bullets right into this thing's head, and its face just melts from the bullets. That was pretty good. I think it's like CG, decent amount, but I liked it regardless, so I don't care. Bailey from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, is the other hot vampire hunter chick in this, so I thought that was cool to see her. Lilith is the main vampire in this. She's the leader, and of course she bathes in blood. Man, I really wish they'd just come up with something original at some point, like bathing in blood. How many times have we seen that now, especially in vampire movies? Enough with the bathing in blood. Although within this movie, it actually makes a little more sense, because we find out that can bring vampires back from the dead and fix their wounds, is by bathing it. So maybe she just got hurt. Maybe she just, she threw herself in the Bacta tank, the blood Bacta tank, and she's healing up. I mean, it's possible. I'd buy that. I wish she'd do that. She got hurt, and so she takes a bath in blood, not just blood. And man, don't have a hot chick like that who is in what's that show? The L Word, right? Wasn't that what she was in? I've seen her in a decent amount of stuff, but she gets out of it. You see her ass, which is nice, but it's like, I don't know, man. When you put a hot chick like that in a tub, like, I want to see it all. Give it to me. Give it all to me. So they go and meet Dane, and Dane is the sort of vampire. Like, his wounds were superficial, so like he kind of is turned, and he just drinks tons and tons of blood out of blood donation bids, and he's leading the charge against killing the vampires, which, it's kind of cool. But we've seen this. We've seen this in the Blade movies. We've seen, like, a lot of stuff in here is from like the Blade movies, for sure, no doubt about it. My note, tease Lilith tits, comma, no show. And then Basin Blood, cliche. I like the upside down bodies that are bound and decapitated and bleeding out. That's a really cool visual. There's a few bodies like that are just all hanging in a room. Can you imagine if you walked into a room and there was just a bunch of bound human bodies hanging from the ceiling upside down with their heads fucking cut off and draining blood into a pot? Could you fucking imagine? Could you imagine what you would feel like in that moment? What you would think, where your mind would go? It'd be nuts. It'd be so scary. And then they capture one of these vampires after a big fight where they smash a vampire. I keep wanting to say zombie for some reason, but they smash this zombie's head in, which is pretty cool. And then they interrogate this zombie. I just said it again, didn't I? Vampire. They interrogate this vampire with UV lights, which I thought was cool. I mean, we've seen this before. I've seen this in a movie where like they keep letting it. I think Mulder does it, right? In an X-Files episode, that one where Mulder goes off without Scully and has like a little romance with this girl, and he like, threatens him with some light in the room, or maybe he doesn't do it, but the guy catches fire in there, so he's like interrogating him and threatening him with the sunlight outside. So, there's nothing you can do to be original. I'm just gonna say that shit right now. Oh yeah. So I like that the detective, the bug eater, proves himself by biting and drinking the blood of the hot chick from Bailey from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He bites her and drains her, like sucks her blood out while he's not a vampire, to like prove that he wants to be a vampire, and then Lilith turns him. I thought that was pretty cool. Like it's like his initiation. Like, I'm gonna fucking make you drink her blood. I thought that was kind of cool. Unless I missed something and he was already, but she turns him right after that, so I don't see how I missed anything. But I thought it was cool. It was like an initiation of sorts. Low budget action in any movie is always extremely noticeable. Like, that is always one of the biggest gripes I have, is low budget. There's very, very rare examples where low budget action actually like is cool and stylized and unique, and they got creative and clever with it. Usually it's typically like trying to emulate something in a bigger budget type thing, but it doesn't have the budget to do it, so it looks really shitty. And this movie's kind of filled with that, so that's kind of a huge slight on the film, but it is what it is. I will say this though, I'm not typically, weirdly enough, I know you guys think I'm like the world's biggest fucking pervert. Definitely not the world's biggest, but I'm not going to say that I'm not at all. That would be a lie. But I typically don't like sex scenes in movies. I usually find them to be pretty fucking like boring. Like, they're usually not very interesting because I'm not seeing sex. As I've said before, show me fucking sex, show me penetration, show me Pornhub shit in a movie. That's what I want to see. If you're gonna have sex, let's fucking see some sex. Or have it like this. I actually like the sex scene in this movie because it's sexy. It feels like they're fucking, but it feels like they're actually into it. Like, it looks like they're having sex in the movie. I mean, obviously you don't see penetration, but he's like fucking her up against a bathroom wall or something, and she's wearing a bra, I think, so you don't really see anything, but it's just the way they're having sex, and it just felt very real. And I was like, yeah, all right, like, this is kind of turning me on. Isn't that the point of sex or in a movie, is to like kind of be erotic, is to give you some kind of a pep? I don't know. But, or to prove that they're in love, maybe something like the Terminator sex scene between Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor, which I like, except for to remember that he's been wearing the pants of a homeless man all day. So I hope he took a shower before he stuck it in Sarah, especially since that is his first and only sex that he'll ever have. Poor guy. Anyway, unless you, of course, take into account the sequels and the TV series, everything, then he has a much different life, but just that version. The blood bringing people back to life, the burnt bodies. Now, if this is in the comics, I can't really say much about it because those comics are written all by the same people, right? But it does kind of not play super well into the first one because that girl gets burnt, and so he's like, what is broken must be broken, and he just offs her, when it's like he could have just went and grabbed some person in town and just hung her over and cut, their neck or something on her, and she would have been fine. So I don't know if he's just like, you were dumb enough to fall for this and get burnt, but he's the one that sent her into the house, so I'm not really sure why he blames her. I don't know, whatever. But they add this to the lore that once your body's burnt like that, you can be brought back to life by the blood. And as soon as they showed that, I was like, oh man, she's going to go dig up Eben and bring him back to life at the end of this movie, isn't she? And she sure as fuck does. Which I actually thought was kind of cool. But it would have had a much bigger impact had it actually been the actor, Josh Hartnett. And Melissa George, of course. And then there's a bunch of bodies hung to bleed. They're being bled out. That's another one when they're on the ship. It's pretty cool. And then the detective guy gets a hook through the eye, and then now this is a 1-swing decapitation. In the first movie, we had a 4-swing, then a 2-swing, and then a 1. It got easier and easier for them to cut off heads in this franchise, and now we're down to 1 again. But yeah, hook through the eye, and then she cuts it, and then his head's just still hanging there, and his body drops. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I like it. Some CG, but overall, I still really like it. I also like that she hides in the bloodbath, and then she comes up and yet again chops Lilith's head off. Now, I think she chops Lilith's head off in like 2 or 3 swings. So that one isn't 1 swing. But it's a good one. It's a decent decapitation. But then after she does that, the other vampires on the ship kind of like bow down to her and like let her pass. Like, you killed our leader, I guess you get to pass. I guess they kind of did that in 30 Days of Night, the first one, when Josh Hartnett kills their lead. They don't all just jump on him and kill him before the sun comes up, but maybe they just ran out of there because the sun was coming. I don't know. And then she goes back home, and she brings some. She digs him up. She cuts her arm, bleeds over his body. She near slashes her wrist, and actually fucking like blacks out from the loss of blood. I was like, dude, she'd black out, and she does. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And honestly, I think that would have been awesome if that was the ending of the movie. She like cuts her wrists, almost like fucking Ryan Gosling in The Nice Guys. Like, oh my god, that's a lot of blood, and he passes. It's one of the funniest sequences ever. I fucking love that movie. Anyway, I think it would have been really nuts if she would have just like slit her wrist and like held it over, and then she would have just fallen over and like bled out, and the credits would have rolled. Could you imagine? That'd be awesome. That'd be so like subversion of expectations to the nth degree. She just cuts her wrist and just like bleeds out, credits. But she brings him back, and he attacks her, kills her, or turns her. But he's like instantly a monster. But that's what he was trying to. That's why he killed himself. He doesn't want to be a monster. You know, the tortoise and no, the not the tortoise and the hare, the frog and the scorpion, right? Like, you knew I was a scorpion. Although, isn't Tarantino's version is the snake, right? In the Natural Born Killers, he tells the exact same story, but I think it's different now. Doesn't matter. But yeah, she brings him back, and he seems to immediately attack her, and it's a pretty damn dark ending, honestly. Look at the tagline on this or not even the tagline, but somebody who's trying to promote this film. It's a little blurb here, a little little line here to try to sell the movie. Dark Days makes Twilight look like nursery school. Everything makes Twilight look like nursery school. Like, Twilight? Why Twilight? Put fucking From Dusk Till Dawn or some like brutal vampire movie. Twilight makes Twilight look like what? It's not a gory movie. It's for fucking like 12-year-old girls. That I don't understand that at all. When I looked at that, I was like, obviously, everything does. What? Anyway, all right. Thanks for the letter in the mail, David. That was awesome, and I hope that you enjoyed these. So this sequel is not as bad as everyone says it is, in my opinion. It's not great, but for a direct-to-DVD sequel, I think it's fine. Adios.